So for more, let's bring in former National Security Council Chief of Staff Fred Fleitz. Fred, thank you for being here. Nobody better to really get a reaction to. You understand this. You've been at these tables. What do you see as the significance of this summit?
Well, look, we know that Trump haters have come out en masse over the last day saying that the summit was a failure, that Trump sold out to Putin. That's not what happened. Peacemaking is hard, and peace agreements usually are the result of painstaking negotiations. Here's what happened at the summit. Trump and Putin agreed to some important principles for a peace agreement. They also discussed some sensitive proposals that Trump has to sell to Zelensky and the Europeans. That's why there were no questions after the press conference, because these things have to be handled sensitively. And I think we see a lot of good signs after the summit. We see Zelensky coming to Washington. We see the Europeans issuing a press statement that is, I think, eight top leaders praising Trump's peace efforts, saying Zelensky has to be involved, saying they want to see more. There wasn't criticism by these Europeans. Now, is this all they wanted? It isn't, but this is hard, and there's a lot of baggage from the Biden administration that Trump has to overcome. I think this is a process. It looks very promising.
You know, it's very interesting you raised that joint European statement after the briefing, Fred. I thought that was very significant, and you're right, it was Macron, Meloni, Merz, Keir Starmer, and a handful of other major European leaders. And they did praise President Trump for this meeting and said, as you pointed out, that Zelensky would have to be the one to decide any land concessions, but then they backed it up with their firm, unwavering solidarity, as they say, working towards a peace and with security guarantees. That's going to be a big part of it, huh?
That was discussed. I've heard what was discussed about security guarantees. Trump is aware of it. He discussed with Putin. I think that's an important part of it. But, you know, another important part of it is to give Putin a face-saving way out of this situation, out of the war, to end Russia's isolation, a deal that will bring Russia back into the community of civilized nations and make it more prosperous. That's how Trump will get Putin to make the painful compromises he has to make to get out of this. And I think that's why the theatrics, what we saw in Alaska, Putin riding in the limo, basically saying to Putin, we can be partners again, make a deal with me.
And it seems that Putin had a goal to really hold off more sanctions, more tariffs, because as we've pointed out before, you know, Russia's economy is struggling. They're a one commodity economy, oil and gas, and the tariffs on India, the second largest purchaser of Russian oil and gas, hit hard. And it seems that Putin realizes that he needs to do something to try and save his economy.
I think Putin was surprised that Trump changed his policy. He was trying to deal with Russia cordially through diplomacy. Putin defied him. Trump got angry. Trump said, I'm going to send weapons to Ukraine through NATO. I'm going to put very tough energy sanctions on, even secondary sanctions against India. I don't think Putin expected that. That's what drove Putin to ask for the summit. So
you've been on the Security Council. Take me inside that room. What comes next? What is it? This trilateral with Zelensky? Is that the next step? And how does this end?
There's intensive diplomacy behind the scenes right now with Zelensky and the European leaders to sell what Trump discussed with Putin, to keep them on board, to stop them from shooting this down before the process proceeds any further. So far, that seems to be working. I'm seeing reports in the media that there are some officials in Europe and in Ukraine, they don't like this, but the principal officials, they're basically holding back. They're letting this process proceed. And I think that's going to be important to get this forward, because there's a lot of work to be done, and there's going to be painful compromises, not just by Russia and Ukraine, but also by Europe.
So I thought it was an interesting moment at the very end of the press conference when Putin said, next time in Moscow. And President Trump didn't shoot it down. He said he'd take a hit for that. Do you ever see President Trump going to Moscow? And would that even be a good idea?
I think he should go to Moscow. If this is something Putin wants, I think Trump should do it, but there's going to be a price. There should be some very significant concessions Putin will have to agree to and implement before Trump gives him the appearance of an American president appearing with him in Moscow.
A lot of people are criticizing that Putin was allowed to speak first before President Trump, because President Trump is, of course, the leader of the host country. I want to play for you just a little bit quickly of what Putin had to say about Ukraine in the security issue. Here's Putin.
And I agree with President Trump, as he has said today, that naturally the security of Ukraine should be ensured as well. Naturally, we are prepared to work on that. I would like to hope that the agreement that we've reached together will help us bring closer that goal and will pave the path towards peace in Ukraine. We expect that Kiev and European capitals will perceive that constructively and that they won't throw a wrench in the works.
So I want to play that for you, Fred, because we've seen time again, Putin says one thing and does just the opposite. What do you say?
No, I think that's a real concern. Will the compromises be made by both sides, and will Putin keep his word? The record's not good. We have to keep the pressure on him. I think the prospect of severe economic pressure on Russia will make a difference, but we're going to need diplomatic pressure on Putin, not just by the U.S., but also by Europe.
Great insight. As always, Fred Fleitz, thanks for being here and kicking things off for us.
Good to be here.
All right.
Hey, it's Will Kane. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Kane podcast for full episodes right now.